Today I'm actually feeling good. Yesterday by the evening I got a bit annoyed and grumpy and did the usual things of just imagining stuff that's not really happening, and I do that sometimes anyway, and I know that I'm just being stupid because, as I said in a previous post, the aim of the game with the fasting is to get into ketosis as quick as possible, because that's when the body switches fuels, so it stops bothering looking for glucose and changes over and uses fat to make energy, and then fat produces ketone bodies, and these have a lot of interesting effects, including being anti-inflammatory. They're a very good fuel source for the brain, and they are quite important actually in things like Alzheimer's and dementia, but again that's something I'll talk about another time. So the aim of the game with the fasting is to get it out of glucose burning mode, or basically, as I say, that dragon that sort of sits on the fat stores and stops the body using them, get that dragon to get off the treasure and start to burn fat, and then things start to settle down a bit for a while. Then later on during the fast, the cortisol will come back again, because the cortisol, I always imagine it is like a general that goes around looking for glucose. It comes back again and I'll get all stressed and annoyed again, and then it'll settle down. Cortisol is also really important because people think it's this horrible stress hormone that causes belly fat gain and such like. It's got lots of other functions as well. It's actually, in short term, it's anti-inflammatory, and it's an immune system booster as well. So it's again another one of the body's little tricks to protect the system when there's nutrient deprivation. But I'll explain more about things like this later. Hello, I'm now on day 4 of the fast, or 96 hours, and thank you to everybody who supported in their own special way. It's very much appreciated. As I wrote in some of my previous posts about sugar and cholesterol and ketones, my body's now pretty much gone into ketosis, which means it's just using fat as its main fuel, and the glucose in the blood is pretty stable now at about 3.8 or 3.9. I also said in the post that there are certain cells which need glucose to function, such as red blood cells and certain neurons, and the body can make glucose itself if it needs to. So it happens in the liver via a process called gluconeogenesis. This means the body can make glucose out of glycerol, which comes from fat, amino acids which come from proteins, and then other things like pyruvate and lactate. So if it needs a little bit of glucose, it can make it itself. The liver also is in charge of producing ketones, and they're made from fat. From the readings that I had, my ketone level is not massively high, and that's partly because I'm using the ketones as fuel as well, so I'm not breathing them out or weeing out that much, because there are several ketones in the body. Beta-hydroxybutyrate is the main one, but also acetone as well. So that's why some people who go on a keto diet or a fasting get a sort of pear drop smell on their breath. And because my ketones are not that high really, I haven't suffered from that problem as far as I know. The other thing which will have happened now in the fast is I'll be pretty deep into something called autophagy. So that's when the cells basically self-eat. And a scientist called Yoshinori Hosumi won the Nobel Prize in 2016 for his work on the mechanisms of autophagy. And that means it's reasonably well understood, but there's still a lot we've got to learn about it. So in lay terms, autophagy is a bit like getting a new bathroom done. So you need to rip out the old bathroom suite to make room for the new one. There are different kinds of autophagy, and it happens in different cell types. And in a previous video I mentioned that there's also mitophagy, when old and damaged mitochondria, which make energy in the cells, get destroyed, and then it makes room for new ones to grow. So it's like getting rid of all the old bangers, cars off the road. The other cell type which I didn't mention in the previous video were immune cells, and this is why people with autoimmune disease or allergies use fasting as a method to calm down the immune system, because these particular cells which have gone around attacking the body for no reason, in say an autoimmune disease, these will get destroyed after about 3 to 5 days during a fast. But in the case of autoimmune diseases, you have to also get rid of the trigger, which is setting off the immune system in the first place. And it can be a variety of things, but often it's plant products more than anything, as in dietary plant products. There are also a variety of other factors as well in the environment, but I'll go into that another time. So when it comes to autophagy, there's a particular protein that's important in this called mTOR, and this can be thought of as the master growth switch in the body. So when the body is in anabolism or growing, mTOR is activated, so that usually is a time when there's plenty of nutrients around or nutrient abundance. So when you're well fed, because things like glucose, amino acids, IGF-1 and insulin all switch mTOR on. And like anything in the body, it's all about homeostasis or balance. So not enough mTOR being switched on, so not enough growth is bad, because you'll end up with muscle wastage and problems like that. But on the other hand, too much mTOR is going to make everything in the body grow, including things that you don't want to grow. So this is why there's an implication of mTOR in cancer. And in general now, research says that it doesn't cause cancer, but it might encourage the growth of cancers in somebody that already has it. So I've said could and possibly here because, again, it's not wanting to give false expectations to people and not wanting to misinterpret the scientific data. The other reason autophagy is interesting with respect to cancer cells, because when the body is in, as we'd say, a nutrient deprived state or starvation, it's going to hunt around for anything that's unwanted in the body, whether it's pathogens, old damaged cells, but also certain cells which shouldn't be there, like cancer cells, could potentially also be destroyed via autophagy. But again, it's one of these coulds, possiblies, because of course it depends on the cancer type, the health of the person, because sometimes if you try and starve a cancer out, all it does is it just draws nutrients from neighbouring tissue and just feeds itself off the body. Because cancer cells, like us, they can adapt in real time and change their genetics, because all they want to do is survive. Also, I said I'd touch on BDNF and mental health and depression during a fast. Well, there's this molecule called BDNF that gets produced during fasting, and this particular molecule is a very good antidepressant and mood stabilizer, but it also promotes the growth of new synapses, or we call it neurogenesis. Exercise also activates BDNF production as well. So this comes from our ancestry, because when we were hunter-gatherers, it would be very dangerous and unadvantageous if, whenever we found ourselves without food, we went all depressed and stupid. The chances of the species surviving is quite small. So there is this mental boost that you get from fasting, which some people have been asking me, do I feel absolutely dreadful? No, I don't at all. I have my odd moments of feeling a little bit lethargic, but other than that, mentally I'm feeling very happy. Also, when it comes to food cravings, the only time I had one, it was this morning when I had to drop something off in a nursing home and they were all having breakfast, and I could smell the breakfast, because during a fast senses get enhanced, particularly smell. And then when it's come to other random cravings, I get the actual mental picture of the food that I want, but also the mental instructions of how I would get there. So it's like a quick sort of video in my brain that gets played for a few seconds, showing me how I could go to the location to obtain that particular thing that I'm wanting, which I actually find really interesting. I've never come across that before in the research. I'm sure other people have observed that. So what it's about is it's about the our evolution. If we found a particularly delicious patch of berries that we really liked, it's in our best interest to remember where we found those berries. So I think it's some kind of evolution thing that I'm getting, not just the food craving as a picture, but instructions on how to get there. And it's more when I'm kind of near this particular place. But it's only happened about 4 times so far. And also with respect to hunger, I get hungry now and again, but mainly around about 4 or 5 o'clock, because I've been doing this thing called OMAD for a while, which is called 1 meal a day. So I just have 1 meal, and the actual purpose of this experiment was to see if I could gain muscle and fast at the same time, and it did actually work. But I was having my meal at about 4 or 5 o'clock, so my body biochemistry, or my body clock, has learnt to associate 4 or 5 o'clock with meal time, so it goes particularly berserk at that time, and it's done that consistently throughout the fast, and it'll probably start to do it quite soon now.